Thank you, and welcome everyone to today's Tech Talk. Easily control grading instead of it controlling you. So what we're going to talk about today is basically a lot of things we deal with inside of engineering is complex. And grading is by far one of the more complex things we do because it can have thousands to millions of components depending on what it is that we want to do. So what we're going to talk about is how can we use SITEOPS to go in and quickly be able to look at all those options and do them in a realistic amount of time to deliver client a better project. So we're going to take over grading instead of grading sort of being one of the things that we feel like takes over us. So just a little bit about me for the ones who don't know me, haven't heard me speak before. I am David Settlemeyer. I'm a registered engineer and surveyor in the state of North Carolina. I'm a professional civil engineer. I pull the role of principal civil engineer here at Bentley Systems, and I've been with SITEOPS since almost the very beginning. And I've done everything from own my own company to being director of engineering for a national developer. So I've got a lot of experience. So by all means, ask questions as we get to that point. I want this to be very interactive. I like questions, and hopefully we'll be able to answer as many as we can as we go through the presentation. So what we're going to cover, just quickly, we're going to look at grading with optioneering. This is going to be the power. This is what's going to give you that control back. What we want, stages of grading, take control of grading, don't believe it, try it, and of course we'll always have questions. So let's get started right into it with a quick little quote. Now for ones who don't know who this is Sir Ove Arup. He started the Arup company. He's also known as the engineer's philosopher. And his thing was engineering problems are underdefined. Engineering problems are underdefined. There are many solutions, good, bad, and different. The art is to arrive at a good solution. This is a creative activity involving imagination, intuition, and deliberate choice. And what we're looking at, and this is what we have to face all the time, and this becomes the difficult part, especially again, like when we're doing something like grading and we're looking at millions of different iterations on how to do a project, is we have to give a good solution. If we don't, they're not going to come back as clients. So we give the best solution in the best amount of time that we can. And of course, sometimes we do have bad decisions. But if we have a way to try to minimize those, it's going to make life a lot better for us. But the big thing is the last sentence. This is a creative activity. It involves a lot of imagination on our part of how to solve the problem. We are professional problem solvers. Engineers, architects, planners. Our job is to solve somebody's problem and deliver what they want that meets the rules, constraints, economics, all the different pieces of a project. But we have an issue with that. The thing that hurts us the most sometimes is the tools that we're using. We have fantastic tools for doing detailed planning and looking at different parts of a project. But conceptually, we're missing a few things. And again, if you've ever seen SITEOPS, this is what it's all about. We're going to look at how do we conceptually come up with the best design possible to go forward with. And that's what we want to do. When he talks about deliberate choice, we want to make sure that we give the client enough information so that when we make a choice of what to design, we were able to take everything into consideration and then be able to choose the best path forward. So we're going to do grading with optioneering. So again, optioneering is a term a lot of us hear all around the place. Basically, optioneering is not the function of looking at 2 or 3 grading plans in the case of grading. It's the idea of looking at 10, 20, 100,000, million, 10 million, 100 million versions. But the big thing we're going to do is we're going to use this to help define the best design with the best cost of construction. So if we take Henry Ford, if I'd asked people what they wanted, they would have said they want to have a faster horse. Okay, when we started SITEOPS, this is exactly the kind of thinking we were out there. All we heard from engineers and architects was, I love my CAD, but I want it to be faster. I want it to be better. But what we quickly realized that standard CAD, just drawing lines and arcs and curves and things like that, that only gets you but so far. We had to come up with something completely different. And it's not just about design, it's also about conveyance of your design, getting people to understand. So we went back and said, all right, we got to draw lines and curves, but let's use genetic algorithms, parametric objects and areas and things that can interact with each other. If I change one object, something else changes if it needs to. That's the kind of thing that we created inside SITEOPS, and that's what you're going to see in just a few moments. How can we use that to take advantage of the grading of a project? So what we want. This was, give you an idea, now this is not from my father's company, but my father was an engineer as well. I'd go to his office. He had over 150 draftsmen in his office. This is typically what it looked like back in for me, the early 70s when I would go in there. And then along came the 80s, right? We needed an improvement in the industry. Nothing wrong with hand drafting, but it was time consuming, especially think about revisions. Every project has multiple revisions, and sometimes that would limit how good the project is on how much time they had to go back and redo something. Now, enter 1982. Now, in 1982, this is when Autodesk came around. A couple years later, MicroStation came around. They came on the PC, and you were able to have this at your office. And it wasn't some huge mainframe computer. It became more realistic for everybody to start using a local CAD program. And that has been going on for over 30 years. And it's done fantastic. But it's time to step up with computing power and evolution in mathematics. It's time to come up with something better. And this is where we're entering today's world. Imagine not just delivering a client a design, but an environment. Something that they can understand. Why are we building a wall? Why did we not build a wall? Why did I put a pond somewhere? How did I grade the site? How did I lay it out? And this is ultimately what we're trying to deliver to a client. A good design, a good budget, and a way for them to understand what it is we're doing today. So when we talk about this, we're not just talking about grading in almost like a 2D form. We're more talking about we are creating a model, and we're grading a model in a 3D environment, even though we're going to do it the simple ease of 2D. We've made sure also as part of building SITEOPS is we looked at what some people like and don't like about the CAD industry, and we made sure we kept things nice and simple as we go forward. And again, remember, SITEOPS is a conceptual tool. I'm not out about detailing every little ditch. I'm trying to look at, does the site work? Can the program that the developer won't fit the site? And better off, can he afford to build it? And the reason we do this is something a lot of us have had problems with throughout the years, is getting a client to understand what it is we build. We don't have Doc Brown from Back to the Future. We don't have that mind-reading machine, as far as I know, it still hasn't been built. We have fantastic ideas in our mind, but we have, again, had problems getting it from our mind to the screen to a piece of paper. Now we don't have that problem anymore. We can quickly create models, we can analyze them, we can look at budgets, grade them, and then spit them out to a software such as LumenRT to look at a visualization, to then be able to show a client. And they can understand the image, the video we just had showing. They can understand that way more than they could ever stand those black and white drawings, especially when you got to convey this to stakeholders on a project who don't know anything about engineering. But they do know what a building looks like. They know what a tree looks like, and they know what a road looks like. And when we convey that, how they look, we don't have to have them trying to read our minds. They're going to know exactly what we're intending to do. So let's talk 1 second about grading. And this is something that a lot of times, when I was putting this together, I thought about it. I said, you know what, there's really 2 stages of grading. There's rough grading and there's fine grading. Now there's clearing and some other things, but that's still all prepping up the site to go into grading. And I thought about this. I said, you know, every time I pretty much did plans for years, I was pretty much doing a final grade. Especially in budget, I rarely ever cut out a rough grade versus a fine grade. Now, we know there's fine grading, and for just for the ones who don't know, rough grading is when you're going to cut and fill, and you're going to do the bulk, the earth movement. And then fine grading is when I'm going to come back in and still cost money, but I'm going to come in and fine-tune the road, I'm going to fine-tune that building pad or the sidewalk or whatever it might be. We're going to take control. We're going to make it exactly how it needs to so that we can go into final construction. But we so much in our time in our industry, we're more about going in and creating that final design. And the budget numbers, which need to be looked at, tend to fall somewhere in the back end, in the almost, if we want to look at it in the back end where the contractor is looking at it and we're doing value engineering. That's when the grading is touched. We're going to bring value engineering. This is another big revolution that SITEOPS brings. We're bringing it from the end of a project to the very beginning of a project. Because remember, I said earlier, we're not just designing, we're going to design looking for the best cost of construction. Because that's what the client wants. Project cost is what it is. We can't argue. If a client only has $1 million, it costs $1.5 million to build what they want. What they want to know is that $1.5 million number quickly, because they need to change what they're doing, or they need to go look for another site. But again, the sooner we get the information, the sooner they can make a better decision. So that's enough showing slides. I want to get in. I really love showing SITEOPS because it's an easy tool to show. We're going to talk about grading, look at some ways that it can actually find errors for you, help you make sure that you're doing a good grade. We'll play around with a few things over the next 15, 20 minutes or so. And so again, make sure and ask all the questions you want, and that way we can make sure and address any issues that you have. So SITEOPS is a icon on the machine. It's a web-based type tool. I'm just going to open it up. For example, I just went in, I hit the button. SITEOPS actually downloaded and installed and opened the newest version. I'm just going to go in with my username and password. And one thing I want you to notice for once who haven't seen SITEOPS, it's a very simple interface, and we've kept it this way again for a reason. This is not CAD. I mean, CAD is a fantastic tool. There's Civil 3D, there's Geopack, there's Inroads. There's a tons of tools out there that are awesome at what they do. Problem is they have to do it for a lot of different disciplines. SITEOPS is for site. You're not going to do mechanical piping or structural beams. You're going to work around site and grading and stormwater. So we're able to keep it a lot more simple. Again, this very purpose-driven tool makes it a lot easier for you to pick up and learn, and also quicker to use. So I'm going to go right into my minister. This is where I store my projects. We're going to go in, and I'm going to go into this very first one here. Now this is a project that's already been laid out, and I want to give you some ideas of the grading control, just something simple, and how SITEOPS can not just grade for you, it's actually going to come in and help you look for any issues. So if we look at the project, it's basically, let's take the image down just a little bit, and we're going to take off the existing contours. I want to make sure that you can see that. So if we look at the existing contours, and we take those away, we're going to see that we have some basic components in this site. And again, there's a ton of videos out there. Go look at it that show you how to draw and do the 2D portion of SITEOPS. I'm not going to really cover a lot of that in this session, but again, there's a lot of it out there. So I can do a nice arched parking lot. Takes all of about 2 or 3 minutes. Over on the right-hand side, everything has properties from a layout standpoint. But right below it, if you look right down there, you will see grading. Now, the grading has everything from the type of object it is. For example, it's an island. What do I want it to be? Is it going to be gravel? Is it going to be asphalt, curb, pavement, what alternative pavement, whatever we want it to be? What are my slopes? 1 to 2%. What's my surface parking? What is it like? What's the depth of that material? Because when we grade, we don't, in the real world, we don't grade to finish grade. We grade to subgrade and then fill it up with some form of material such as asphalt, binder, ABC. Again, depending on the project, is what you're putting in, but we're putting something back. We're not putting dirt back into that area. So I can come in and set a depth. So the same thing on a building. If you notice, if I pick on a building, its parameters for what you can do with are completely different. Sidewalk. Everybody has their own way of doing things, even down the roadway. And we'll talk a little bit more about roadway and grading in just a few moments, because there's a lot of really neat things you can do inside of that tool and area for grading. So you can see down at the bottom, we control side slopes, center line slope, material types. And again, you can change a road, and every little section of a road can be completely different from the other. But the one thing I want you to look at, when we start talking about grading, this one's already been set to have an error. And if you look in the upper right-hand corner right here, it says grading is not feasible. So how do we come up with that? Well, so first off, when you use SITEOPS, and once you come in and you grade or you draw something, we need to grade it. Now, for anybody who's ever done site planning, looks at this and goes, wait a minute, you're going to come in and you're going to grade this. It could take a couple hours, then depending on your skill set, a couple days. Well, here's the beauty of what SITEOPS is going to bring to you. I'm going to go in the upper right. I'm going to click that little button. Y'all see it up there in the upper right-hand corner. And it's going to open up another window. And what happens is, look at this, hands-free grading. Nobody else gives you that. Because in the lower right-hand corner, if you look at that, those numbers are moving because it's running through around 10, 20,000 grading plans right now, just looking for any potential errors. When we go through optimization, where we let the computer really crunch down on the numbers, then it can go into the millions and millions of iterations. But its whole goal is to make sure it meets all the design constraints and gives us the cheapest cost of construction. Red is cut, blue is filled, yellow means little to no elevation change. And if I turn on my boundaries, I can actually see there's the building and the parking and the islands. I'll zoom in a little bit. So we can actually see this is what the project's coming up with, but there's a problem. You see the again, grading, we have still not solved this. This is what happens a lot. There is no such thing as we'll fix in the field with SITEOPS. If you need it to be something, you need to make sure it's there. That way it's, you know that it's a constructible model. So we're going to go right over on the right-hand side, down to layers, and there's one called slope problems. This is my problem. And you'll see the red that goes from the north side of the project all the way down to the south. Well, what it's telling me is I'm missing about 1.5 feet right in the middle of the building. 1.4 feet. So we're missing about 1.4 feet roughly. Now in reality, we got to pick this up somewhere. Now there's two ways I can solve this. And this is the part that I like everybody to understand. It's a software. It's not an engineer. It's not an architect. It's not a planner. If I did something like this, you're going to have to tell it how to solve the problem. All it's going to know is it has a problem. So in this case, as an engineer, I'm going to go, well, if I really look at this, I cannot mess with the slope of the parking lot, can't mess with the building, but I do have a wetlands area down the back that maybe I could build a wall against, or, you know, one of the easiest places to take out area for slope is to come in and look at the parking lot drive. So let's come up and look at this drive. Now the client wanted it fairly flat, just so you can make sure you get vehicles in and out. We look on the lower right hand corner, about 1 to 3%. So let's just crank this up to 7%. That way SITEOPS will find the best way to take care of that. So all we got to do now is in the upper right, hit layout. Oops, sorry, I didn't mean hit grade. There we go, hit layout. And once you hit layout, we can now apply that change, hit grading, and we're going to turn off the boundary. It's going to look really similar because, again, it's not a lot of difference, but it's the ability of it's the having a constructible model. It's about $841,000 to build this model, and if you notice, we don't have the issue anymore. But let's take this back, and this is where the being able to look at options and different scenarios and being innovative. So let's go back. We'll reset that. Make sure we get the grading error back. And if you notice, it was 841. This one's 862,000. So we actually saved over one version over the other. We saved about $20,000. So that's pretty neat. We already saved them money. But let's say I want to go back, and the client says, you know what? I need that driveway. I need this building at a certain elevation because I have a client that I'm selling the building to. But I can put a wall in. I don't want walls, but if that's the way to get the site built, let's look at a wall. So I'm going to right-click on my mouse, click chain, and I'm going to go in and I'm going to actually just pick those lines with the chain tool. And over on the right, there's a link height. This tells SITEOPS if you need a wall, use it. So let's apply that, hit the grading button, and now if we look at the bottom, you'll see the tan right there. That's a wall. We'll go back and look at the colors. But we're now at about about $900,000. So you're talking about a $60,000 difference. Again, neither one's any better than the other. Both of them make the client happy. Both of them meet the constraints. The client's going to choose whichever one they need. If they can lower the building a further to and save $60,000, they'll do it. If they have to keep the building up with a flatter driveway, they're going to choose that one and they're going to put a wall up. But here's what we've given them. Within a few minutes, we've given them a choice. We've given them the information. It's not a guess. It's not, I think this is what's going to happen. This is what happens. And in this case, you might, the client say, you know what, just completely redesign to something else. Maybe this is not going to fit what I need. But we've given them the information to make this choice. So let's open up a different project. We'll go to Administer. And we're going to go in and let's just take an open, empty piece of property. Because one thing I want to make sure we get to is we show some roadway stuff, because that's very important. So here's just a simple piece of property. Again, one thing doing SITEOPS, I can get the aerial imagery and the data and the boundary and all kind of different things. There's a lot of sources out there. We help you as a user get that together. And you can see the image. I'm just going to take the image down, take off the contours. And let's do something simple for now. I want to draw a road from one side to the other. So let's go under layout. Now we talk about controlling grading. Think about roadway. When we do roadways, we got a ton of different things that have to take place. We have to tie in. So let's bring the image back up just for a few seconds. I'm going to tie into the roadway. Let's just say there. And I'm going to come across. Let's just make it nice and simple. I'm going to cross the creek once, go up through here, and let's come in and let's tie into that existing stub out. So now I have a quick
David,
little road. Yes.
If I may interrupt, we have a question.
No problem.
How does the program decide unit price to figure out cost? Any setting to adjust the unit price?
Most definitely. So let's jump back on that real quick. If we go to default area inside SITEOPS, this is where you can control everything from your layout constraints, how big are parking spaces and drive aisles and roadway requirements and building, to grading, what percentages do I have to use for min and max slope, stormwater requirements, runoff coefficients, different things like that. But then at the end, there's unit cost. So you can come in and you can set one of these templates up based on your location, your client's needs, however you need to, and you can save them and use them over and over again. So you can see under my account, for example, I have a number of these where you can go in, and if I'm back in, if I go to Las Vegas, I can click that in. It's got the unit cost for Las Vegas, and it's got everything set up. So it only takes a few minutes to set one of these up. And the beauty is you can share this across the company if you want to. So if if I got somebody here in Charlotte working and they need to work on a project in Las Vegas, it'll just go ahead and they can grab that and it'll be set up for them. Very simple. All right, so now that I've set a roadway up, you can see that we may need to do a few things like change radiuses. So again, you have all this control. I'm going to go and just do a quick little radius change. I am an engineer, so I like things to look fairly accurate, so make sure that the fire marshal's happy. But one thing you don't see is you see a center line. We don't see a road. So I'm going to hit layout. There's my road. So I'm going to go over to my road, pick on it, go to cross sections. I'm just going to apply a simple little template real quick. Again, nothing fancy. We're going to have a center line with slopes and sidewalks. I hit apply, and there's my new roadway. So now I have a project that I can work on. So let's grade this. This is the one thing I wanted to show real quick in the first set of doing grading. I want to hit the grading button. So once I've hit the grading button, SITEOPS is going to go in. It's going to look at how, I've got K values. I've got different things I need to hold on this roadway. How are we going to come in and grade the road? So we got red is cut, blue is fill. Again, it's trying to balance the site if that is the cheapest option. It may import or export. Again, just depending on what you're designing and what are the unit costs, that will change the way it does things. But for example, one thing it doesn't do, or it does do that maybe we don't do, let me rephrase that, is when it's grading, somewhere down the road we take into account clearing costs, fees, erosion, sediment, all these different things that we would want to take into account as we're doing it. So as it's grading, for example, as it's cutting a slope back, it understands if I've told it they're going to have walls, there may be a point where a small wall is cheaper than to keep cutting the hill back, because every time I cut the hill back, I got to deal with topsoil. I got to dig it and put it somewhere else. I got to deal with clearing the property. I got to come back and put erosion control on it. So it's looking at all those different components to figure out how can I come up with the cheapest design. Now there's two parts of SITEOPS that I want to make sure everybody understands. There's what we call the cost in a roadway. There's cost optimization. This was based on cost. SITEOPS comes in and cuts the site into just what we deal with a lot of times, a lot of little tins, just tons and tons of little tins. If I zoom into an area, you can see where it's cut the road up. Okay, and it's holding those constraints on the tins, and the tins, they wrote, scientists have wrote all kind of advanced algorithms and everything that lets these tins work with each other. But they're not exactly 100% correct by engineering standards. So what I need to do is I need to take this road, and I want to view the profile. Now if we come in and look at this road, I'm going to zoom in just here so you can see it. So if we look at the low point, this is probably not the way we're going to design a road. The red is existing, the white is finished grade, the green is subgrade. That don't look too good, right? But that's based on cost. We're now going to design this based on our engineering standards. So I can come in, I can start drawing my own at this point, getting more detailed, using this as my guide. Or what a lot of people love to do is there's a new little thing called best fit. I can say best fit. Let's give it a K value that we want. Let's say 38, because in Charlotte for a collector, that would what it would be. And now I'm going to sit back and let SITEOPS look at it from an engineering standpoint and say, how can I now come back and get a better design? So that was pretty simple. That one went in and said, all right, we only need one really big curve, and we can solve it. But what if I go, you know what, that's not what I want. I'm still the designer of this project, so let's add a point. Maybe I'm going to come in, we're going to add one here, and then we're going to add one down here, and let's add one up here. So at this now, I can come back and click on these points, go to the right-hand side. Let's give it a K value of 38. And if you notice, it automatically, we'll do it again right here in the middle. K value of 38. It makes the curve form. Oop, that was 3, sorry. Mistyped there, the 38. And the beauty is it will keep this and hold it as a constraint. And if I move it too close, maybe just like we go in, you can see I just turned this area to red. That basically means in this case, I've probably either don't meet my curve requirements or I don't meet a tangent. I think most likely it's the tangent on this one. So let's come in, let's go in where we had a lot of fill before. Let's just go in and leave that. So at this point, when I exit out, it applies that to that roadway and it holds it. So now when I grade, I'm going to get a completely different looking grade. We still have the low point that was the fill for the area right there. So we can come in and start looking at how do we make a change. So here's a good example. Let's go back to this road profiler real quick. And again, this is the part of grading that can, we all know can get a little excruciating, is the back and forth process. So if you notice, as I pick on, go back to the profiler, as I'm in the profiler view, you can see how I'm riding up the profile. We're coming in and we're changing. So let's just drag this road to a cut instead of a fill. Again, that simple, I can come in and change it. And I'm going to show you in a second how if you had other roads attached to it, you can get the exact same thing. Now, that whole area along this section right in there, which was not a cut, is now one. So again, that's what I've told the model to do, is go in and create a cut. So let's go in and open one other quick little project. And let's take this to where it's had a subdivision design. And this is a really cool one for grading. For the ones in here who have done anything that has padding involved, especially like a residential community that has multiple level of padding. If you make a change, for example, like I'm going to change the low point of this roadway and pull it up, because I have to have a creek crossing, that will affect this roadway, which will pull this roadway up, and it will then affect the lots as everything goes along. This is the great thing of this new great roadway grading and being able to look at it in multiple stages. As I change something, I'll be able to change it all along. So if we go in and look at this one, you can see, for example, see how there's very little fill going in there because I haven't set any K values to it yet. We have a road, we have lot grading. Now think about this. I could draw this subdivision in about 5 or 10 minutes inside SITEOPS and then grade it by the click of a button. And again, hands-free grading. That's almost unheard of. This is power. This is the power we've always wanted as designers, because I'm going to spend more time being an engineer or an architect and less time being a drafter, less time about drawing something, more time about being creative and problem solving, which again, that's what we love to be, right? We're professional problem solvers. So let's close this. Let's go back and real quick, we're going to do the same thing. You know, it's almost similar to the road I drew before. Try to get something that would look a little similar. Let's show the profile. In this case, it goes up and down a little bit more. So let's come in, let's do a best fit curve. I'm going to give it a K value of 38, just like we did before. And let's SITEOPS go at it. And we're going to get a little bit different design. We had different constraints on this one versus the other one. You're going to see it takes a little bit longer because it's getting a more complex roadway system. As I now come in and we'll let this just settle down in a second. One thing I want to start showing you as it's doing that, you see where it says driveway right here with the little square box. Now that driveway is where the other roadway is connecting to it. And if we go out, and I'm going to close this one, and now I'm going to come into this, let's do apply, and let's grade it, just so I can show you the difference. We're going to apply and grade. And you can already see, because of those K values, I got a little bit more grading in that low point because I couldn't go down in there as steep as I really wanted to, and I'm doing more grading into the lots. Again, just because I changed this low point means I affected everything that associated to it. So let's come in and just change this. Why don't I just do it one more time to this roadway? So as you can see, we have basically a really jagged roadway. I need to do the same thing there. Let's do maybe a K value of 20 for a more lower level local road. Now one thing I want you to notice is up here on this end, if you notice it added a lock to it because it understands it ties into that other roadway. So it knows it cannot move unless that other roadway moves, which is the really cool part. So if I go in, which we'll do in a second, if I move one roadway, the other one's going to move with it. So let's do this. Let's come in Let's just open this up a little bit. And let's try to make this happen, just so you can see it. Let's see. Let's just make sure I'm on the right end of the road. Let's pick this roadway. Let's do profiler. Let's bring it down. Let's zoom in. Get these two profiles open. And I'm picking the right end. There you go. It was a little hard to see. Let's zoom in just a little more on this one. Oh, sorry, I picked the wrong end. User error. There we go. Now if I change this, you see now automatically it changes. So that's the really neat part. As we change one, the other changes. So if I raise that low point, that's all I got to do. That's my experience. That's using my knowledge to go in and do that. So if I change it, we just made a change that could take hours to regrade. You can do in just a few moments. So now you see we have drastically different grading plan. Went up probably a couple $100,000. Yeah, not the end of the world. It's just something somebody needs to know. Maybe now I'm not going to pad these lots. I'm going to let them slope off and do a basement. But we can start making decisions, helping clients make better projects, and we can do this through grading. Because I control the grading, not it controlling me. I'm not going to make a decision and spend hours and hours to try to figure out if I made the right one or not. I'm going to spend minutes to decide if I made the right one. Because the odds are, we're human. We don't pick out the very first perfect design every single time. If you are, you're the ultimate engineer. But we normally don't. And first off, we can't take clients' considerations into the revision process until we give them something to look at and tell us whether they like it or not. So we're going to go back and forth on these projects. And we need to make sure that every time we make a change, we're able to come in and regrade it and do things very quickly to get a solution. Now, one thing you also want to understand is that little budget we saw in the lower right-hand corner, that's what I call the designer budget. That's for me. When that one site went up $60,000, I better be able to understand why and be prepared to talk about it because they want to know. But this is the kind of budget you get on the back end. We get quantities, we get clearing and topsoil and cut and fill, and if stormwater piping, if it did a quick design on that using the rational method, again, conceptual level, what it's going to take to do that. Erosion, sediment control, on-site improvements, curb, gutter, asphalt. You can see the quantities, the unit costs, the totals, the subtotals. Stormwater, again, if you let it do it, some people do, some don't. That's up to you. You can have SITEOPS do whatever you want. And even a miscellaneous. This is one where you can go in and draw water lines, for example, for potable water. As you change the length of the line, it changes the budget. You can add manholes, or it could be anything your heart desires. It's your ability to add in custom budget items as you go through the project. So let's just minimize this real quick. And then one thing you can also do, which we always love to show, this is not really SITEOPS. The whole thing about SITEOPS is this whole time we've been creating a three-dimensional model. And now we need to do something with this model. So we can export this to any of the major CAD tools. So if I want to go up to my favorite Bentley software, just click on it. SITEOPS finds what I got, open it up, and go right there. Or I can save it locally. I take it out to Google Earth, send it to KMZ to find, call client and say, hey, do you like this? Yes or no, thumbs up, thumbs down, right? The other one is LumenRT. Now, LumenRT is a really great tool to be able to show my design. I can come in and actually zoom around at this, and you can play with it. And what I really like is it's going to show my design intent for grading. It's going to be exactly as I grade it. So let's zoom through this building. Let's just go into an area. Well, here's a good one right here at this lower intersection. If I look back towards that building, I can actually see there's the building setting up top. Maybe the client needs to lower that building. Well, to lower that building a foot or two is going to be very expensive. But I'm going to be able to help the client understand that and visually be able to see, if I'm at that intersection, this is what it looks like. And this is the really cool part about LumenRT. The trees sway with the wind, the clouds move, people walk. You can add sound. You can do all this crazy stuff to take a project, which you did in SITEOPS within an hour or two, and you can present a client something that looks like this. So if I got a little mixed-use community where living units, an office, and a park, and a firehouse, this is not hard to deliver. This is the easy part, and this is merely the click of a button. Because SITEOPS will put the parking spaces, or the cars in the parking spaces. They'll put some of the trees. I drop a building in there. It's very easy to make this. So I'm not just controlling grading, I'm even controlling the whole model. So let's jump back out to the PowerPoint, and we'll start winding down. So again, we're talking about taking control with the grading. And I hope we've been able to show that today, that again, SITEOPS has really fast, really easy tools to allow you to go in and control what you do with your project. And that's the beauty of the software, is how do we come in and do that. So really, where does it fit in the workflow? I want to make sure everybody understands. SITEOPS is a tool that is not for, it's not going to do plan production unless what we think. It's not going to put borders and dimensions. We have fantastic tools that do that. We all do. We've been using them for years. What we need is something to help us get a better project to start with. And that's SITEOPS' job. It's going to come in and help me acquire data, create a site plan, grading, stormwater, budgets. It's going to be able to help control all that information really quick, make visuals so I can get a client to understand what we're looking at, so that they give the thumbs up and we go to plan production. And the biggest thing that it does is it adds the ability to look at revisions. I know when I had a company, we did huge subdivisions, and to look at 30, 40, 50 revisions of a subdivision was fairly common. And it was time consuming. To spend a couple months to get a preliminary plan ready just for first submittal was not that uncommon. I went back and ran it through SITEOPS, and I could do it in hours. But what I really was able to do was probably look at more options than I ever were before and come up with better designs. Clients willing to pay for you using SITEOPS because they know they get a better design, they get the best design, and that's what you want to be able to deliver, right? Because part of the challenges of today is there's a whole bunch of challenges we have in the engineering community, and Bentley is doing really good at meeting those and helping, like acquiring data. We have tools built in SITEOPS. You can do context capture. Again, I can go out to different resources and grab it. And then the big thing that SITEOPS brings in, and other tools that Bentley do as well, is we want to apply that experience. And we will spending more time being a designer, less time being a drafter. And then we want to be able to deliver a project that the client needs to have their requirements met. Because if we can deliver it to them the way they want it, they're happy, right? And if we're delivering the best results possible, we're exceeding their expectations. And that's our ultimate goal. We're in business, right? We're not just doing engineering work for the fun of it. We're getting paid. We want clients to come back. And the ultimate goal in any business is to exceed clients' expectations. Because if you can do that, return clients make money. You don't have to chase them every time. And that's a big thing you'll see by using technology like this, grading like this. I mean, imagine going into a client and you're trying to win a project and you just hit a button. Because you've spent a few minutes talking with them, get an idea what they might want, hit a button, and that grading, that budget number is going down, down, down. You look at them and say, you know what, you haven't given me the job yet, and I'm already saving you money. I'm not going to save you money in 2 months from now. I'm going to save you money right now. That is the kind of power you're going to get with SITEOPS, and that will help you win projects. That's the kind of thing that you would go in and say, let's just sit down and do a quick little charrette, not on a piece of paper, not on an onion skin on a tax map. We're going to draw something. I'm going to hit a grading button, and we're going to start looking at some quantities. What level? We've got a lot of grading, a little bit of grading. Do we need walls? Do we not need walls? All these kind of things can be determined really quickly to help figure out the best cost. Now, again, this is something I get a lot of times. They go, David, you make this look really simple. To be honest, it is. The hardest part of using SITEOPS is knowing what you want on the screen. In other words, being the designer. If you're a designer, you already do this for a living, then SITEOPS is pretty simple. And if you don't believe me, I'll tell you, but we have a free trial. Go out there and try it yourself. If you're a Bentley user, go to Fulfillment, go under SITEOPS, and you can try it, and there's a little free trial button. If not, go to bentley.com, go to the product page for SITEOPS. You'll see on the right-hand side a free trial. Click that. It'll do a quick little install, and it'll pop up a dialog, log in just like I had earlier, and in there you just hit the free trial button. Fill out 1 or 2 little questions, nothing really difficult, and you'll be using it right then. You don't even have to wait for anybody to get back with you. And try the power yourself, because you will be amazed at how easy this tool is to use and how much more information you can get in so much less time. So let's get into questions. We're just a tad bit over on our time.
Okay, we have a question for you, David. How do you show a split in grade in a parking lot? Say a high point in each.
You would use a thing called a grading feature. So in other words, we'll just quickly show you that area. I could come in and I could use a constraint area, and inside that constraint area I can set almost like a waffle cone effect that some people may call it. Especially in the lowlands like Florida, things like that, we really have problems with moving dirt. Or water. I'm assuming that's what you're looking at. We can come in and make it go up and down just by simply doing a grading area and assigning a slope to that. So if I came in and did a grading area, we'll do this real quick. We'll just go in. I'll create an area. I'm going to tell it under properties, you can only be but so steep. Let's just say 5%. And then I can actually give that a direction path. And I can say that, apply it, grade it. And let's go up here to the side. Give it a second just to catch up. Oh, let's do that again. There we go. So if we zoom into this area, turn off our boundaries and our contours, you're going to see me grading right here. And I could actually, ooh, there we go. Let's zoom this back out. Sorry about that. There we go. So right there's that area. And if I really want to tell it exactly a certain way, I don't want it to still try to roughly go 5% in that direction, 1 to 5%. I want to say it has to be 5%. I can even come in and just simply pick on this area and tell it to, as a hard constraint, and it takes the lowest number and it will grade it exactly as you tell it to. So we're thinking, example, ball fields, things like that. And it'll work on parking lots, works on, I've seen them even on huge warehouses where they're thousands of feet long, millions of square foot warehouses, and they need to make sure things do exactly as they want. So you do have that level of control. So as you can see right there on the screen, I've told it 5% in that direction. You really don't have the ability to think. You'll do what I tell you.
Okay, thank you. Going back to the cost report, did you export the cost information into Excel directly from SITEOPS?
Yeah, there is an area underneath. If we go to exports, view, there's a cost report here, which has an area this way. And if I want to get one out in an Excel spreadsheet, what I would do is I would submit right here, SITEOPS. And this is where we go into optimization. We're going to do millions of grades. We're actually going to fine tune that budget a little bit more. And I can tell it to just do grading, do stormwater grading. I submit project like I have on the screen here. You're probably talking 20, 30 minutes. It could be a simple, little building with some parking, couple minutes. You get a budget, you get a solution back, and then you can go under your administrative tab, and at that point you can look at a solution. Let's see if I got one in here that actually has a solution. There we go. So if I go to a solution, I can then export out my budget, PDF files, land XML, DWG files, whatever I need to go forward with this project. I can do it either, again, some of it comes directly out of SITEOPS, some of it I would come over here and get. But yes, you can definitely export this straight out and get that nice budget, just like you see. And we even show people, if you need to, how to come in here and even customize the logo. So it has your company logo instead of SITEOPS on top of.
Okay. Can you create a road layout but maintaining the existing back of sidewalk elevations?
No, you cannot. What you're going to do is you're going to make that as part of the cross section. And we'll go to the cross section. And we'll just look at one real quick. So the cross section here is what's going to tell me what it can and cannot do. So if I hold this and then the shoulder is going to hold out, it's going to hold to the shoulder. But I cannot design it based upon the sidewalk. It's going to do it based on the center line and then apply the cross section to the center line.
Okay. Can you show us how to do lot grading on the subdivision?
I'm not sure exactly what level, but I'll show what I can just to give you an idea of grading controls. So again, it grades on its own. So I'm not doing any of the lot grading. But if we go to a parcel template, whenever you set up an area, now you can have multiple areas. I can even have multiple controls inside the same parcel area by deviating. Again, there's other webinars that really get into some of the residential stuff in more detail than we have time here. But basically, this is how you do lot grading inside SITEOPS. So let's say we're still in Charlotte. So I've got a R3 zoning. On the left side of this is your layout. This is going to be how does it look basically in a 2D form. Where's my building located? What are my setbacks? My different controls. The right-hand side, this is the grading. You'll see the image on the right shows it in its extreme and its minimum of what it could look like as we go in. So if you can, and little things like, do I need to be above the road? Am I going to allow it to have walls? And if I do, where do they have the walls? And what's that maximum? Maybe I don't want to go over 6 feet because I don't have any structural issues. And once you apply that to an area, and we let it grade, we'll let this grade for just 1 second. SITEOPS is going to come in here and grade. We'll grade, 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 grade. And you'll actually see some of the red places in here. Since I went to a different zoning, it actually went in and said, hey, you don't have a lot big enough for a building. We can meet your square footage, so you can see that I'd have to go back and move roads and do some other creative things. But if I go under layers and I look at proposed finish grade, you can actually see now, the longer we let it go, the smoother the contours will be. But you can actually see now it's grading the roadways. In this case, there was no building pad to grade because it won't fit one. We can come in and it's just going trying to cost optimize it. Then when there's building pads, you're going to see that it's cutting in the building pad. Again, the longer you let it go, the smoother the contours come in. You can set control of smoothness. I think just for speed, I got mine set at 0, so it's not really smoothing any contours. Again, because it's like anything, when I add more control, it slows it down just a touch, not very much, but just a little bit, so I don't have the smoothing turned on in my version. I hope that answered the question.
Yep, so we have another question. How do I grade to a net import, say 500?
Not sure what now, if you want a net import, not sure exactly what you're asking, but I'll try to answer. Let's do it this way. If you want to say, again, I'm not sure, if you're trying to control the amount of import of dirt that you have the ability to control import and export. There's a couple different ways. One is I go right back under defaults and we can type in the word desired. And at this point, I can have a desired import and a desired export amount. So we can tell it, I would like to bring in up to 500,000 cubic yards. If I tell it that, doesn't always necessarily mean it's going to use it all. What it's going to do is it's going to bring in desired as much as it needs to, again, to make the best project. It's looking at import and export costs and moving on site, wall costs, and all those different pieces. So again, it's going to use as what it can. Now, if I need to go back in and actually use dirt that I have to, we have the ability to add a borrow and fill area. So then you can even control, basically on multiple phase projects, where are we grabbing that dirt actually from? Or where am I dumping dirt? Because maybe I do know in phase 2 I'm going to need some yardage, so I want to put 20,000 yards on the next, over the next line into phase 2. I can just stockpile it somewhere and start doing it that way. So again, you do have the ability to deal with, basically dealing with bulk movement in a number of different ways.
Okay. Is there any way to print to scale from SITEOPS?
Not currently. I think we're working on a few things that may have that coming before it's all said and done. Right now, it's really export this straight out to your favorite tool. We have a little doc center, which is a little bit of a CAD type program that would allow you to export this straight over, get the line work, add some borders and dimension, and do some basic printing. A lot of people would like to go up to Google Earth and do a nice little PDF print from there, seeing their subdivision on the Google Earth, or whatever the project might be. So again, there's a couple different ways. Some people just take a screenshot and print it. But right now, there is no direct way to basically add dimensions or anything like that and print it out.
Okay, looks like we have one more question. How long does it take to learn SITEOPS and become a good user?
Okay, again, I get this question all the time, and I understand. I'm really flying through the software. I'm making it a little easy, and of course, I've been here since almost the very beginning. I should be able to. This is like any software. It only takes a couple days to learn, but then it takes a couple projects to master. You're not going to come in and take a 2.5-day training course and know 100% of the software. We don't with anything. I couldn't do Word that way or Excel, and we've never been able to do Civil 3D or GeoPack or En-ROADS that way. It takes some time to learn. So you're going to come in, you're going to know a pretty good bit of SITEOPS, probably more like 60-70%. Then you're going to go back and do a project and 2 projects. So probably about the second or third project, you're going to be pretty fast on this. And we've seen some people be fast right in the middle of training. It really just depends on how more tech savvy. If you're really a big CAD user and you're doing a lot of Civil 3D work, things like that, SITEOPS is pretty easy to pick up. It's not going to be a hard thing to do. Actually, we spend more time teaching people how to deal with grading than we actually do how using the tools, because the tools are pretty intuitive. We've done that from the very beginning, making SITEOPS easy to understand what a tool does.
All right. Thanks, David. That's all the questions for now.
Thanks, everyone.